أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى إترة الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to Back to Basics, where we're looking at basic fiqh in order to make sure that we are doing our Salah and the prerequisites of Salah correctly. This is the fourth of the series, and so far we have done, we've looked at wuzu, we've looked at Jabira wuzu, and we've looked at tayammum, and today we will be looking, inshallah, at ghusl. And we were doing this in order to remember Imam Jaffer Sadiq, who most of the fiqh that we have are from a hadith that we have got from Imam Jaffer Sadiq alayhi salam, and his shahada is coming up, inshallah, in the next few days. So we want to honor him and remember him and just sort of realize that we're doing something worthwhile in his remembrance from his life, inshallah. So looking at ghusl, the ghusl is the washing of the whole body in order to restore tahara using water. And obviously when you're using water, the same conditions that were required for the water of wudu are required for the water of ghusl. So the fact that it has to be clean, not mixed with anything. It has to be tahir, which means it has to be pure. It shouldn't have any najasat in it, and we should have permission in order to use it. And also with ghusl, again, just like wudu, we should try to do it ourselves. If there is a reason that we need someone's help, then that's different. The difference between ghusl and wudu is that ghusl is required when there has been a major hadath. And that are things like sexual relationships with my spouse, menstrual bleeding, postnatal bleeding, and lots of others. And we'll look at why when ghusl is required. Whereas wudu is required when there has been a minor hadath. So things like urine, feces, passing wind, sleeping, things like that will break the wudu, and I would then have to do wudu in order to purify myself. Minor hadath does not affect ghusl. Now what this means is that the ghusl is not broken if I need to go to the bathroom or if I pass wind. So much so that even while I am doing the ghusl, if I pass wind in the process of doing the ghusl, my ghusl is still not affected. I don't have to restart it. But what I do have to do is I will have to do wudu before I actually pray my salah. The other difference between ghusl and wudu is that ghusl has no direction of washing. Remember when we did wudu, we said that we had to wash in a downwards direction on the face and from the elbow down to the fingertips on my arms. With ghusl, I can wash up, down, sideways. It really doesn't matter. There's no direction of washing and there is no continuity needed as well. Again, with wudu, we needed to make sure that we follow the sequence with no gap in between. With ghusl, I can wash my head and neck, and then I can go away for a couple of hours and then come back and wash my body. I can wash, one side of my body, go away, wash the other side. There can be a gap in between, and that is okay. But the sequence has to be followed, and we will look at the sequence. Ghusl can be a mustahab ghusl, and there are wajib ghusls as well. So let's look at the wajib ghusls because that's what we need to concentrate on. So there are 7 wajib ghusls, obligatory ghusls. The ghusl of janaba, which is obviously after sexual relationships, and after the ghusl of janaba, Aga actually says that we should not do wudu for salah. So the ghusl itself is sufficient, and he actually says we should not do wudu for salah. The other wajib ghusls, we don't have to do wudu, other than ghusl of istihaza, which is the medium ghusl of istihaza, where wudu is required after it. But the rest of the other wajib ghusls, we can actually pray with them without having to do wudu on top of the ghusl. Okay, so you have ghusl of janaba, where you should not do wudu. You have ghusl of hayd, which is ghusl after the menstrual cycle is completed. Ghusl of nifas, which is after the post-bleeding after birth. The ghusl of istihaza, which is any kind of bleeding other than after childbirth or menstrual cycles. It's any other kind of bleeding, and this would be whether it's heavy or medium, then a ghusl is required. And when it is medium, then a wudu is required after the ghusl of medium istihaza. Ghusl of a dead body is different because here you are doing it to someone else. And this ghusl is a ghusl which is wajib in itself, whereas all the other ghusls are wajib because I cannot pray without doing the ghusl. Ghusl for touching a dead body. When I'm doing ghusl of a dead body and I actually touch the dead body with skin to skin contact, or if I touch someone who has passed away, then I would, and they have not had ghusl on them, then I would have to do ghusl of Masuma Jaffer, which is ghusl of touching the dead body. Ghusl because of a vow or an oath that I have made that I will do ghusl. And then there are lots and lots of mustahab ghusls. For example, ghusl of Jummah, ghusl of Laylatul Qadr, ghusl of Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha, and so forth. All of these ghusls, it is better to do wudu afterwards. That is the recommended precaution, that we should actually do wudu after we have done the ghusl. But that is a recommended precaution. We can actually pray with a recognized mustahab ghusl. You can actually pray with that without having to do wudu. Now let us look at the method of doing ghusl. So obviously we have to make the niyat first, which is qurbatan ilallah. You can specify what we are doing the ghusl for. So it could be ghusl of haze, ghusl of janaba, ghusl of jummah, whatever it is. If I have several ghusls on me, so I may have more than one ghusl that is needed on me, and they may be wajib and mustahab. So I might have, for example, ghusl of janaba and ghusl of haze, and I want to do ghusl of jummah because it's on a Friday. I can actually make all the niyats together and just do one ghusl, and that is fine. The first thing I have to do is wash my head and my neck, and thereafter then I wash the remaining part of the whole of my body. It is better to wash the right hand side of my body and then the left hand side of my body, and each time when I'm washing these areas I go a little bit further in order to cover any bits that may be missed out. So when I'm washing my head and neck, I will go below my neck. When I'm washing my right hand side, I go a little bit to my left hand side, and when I'm washing my left hand side, I go a little bit to the right hand side. Aga has actually made it obligatory precaution that before we start washing the part that we're going to wash, we move that part out of the water just slightly and then go into the water to wash it with the niyyah that you're now starting the ghusl. So I may be having a normal shower. Once I start the ghusl, I just move the shower head a little bit away so it's not on me anymore. I make the niyyah and then I start washing my head and my neck. And then I again move the shower head off myself a little bit, and then start washing, and then bring it back and wash my right hand side, and then again take it off a little bit, and then bring it back and wash my left hand side. So I'm actually totally present in the moment, knowing what I'm washing when I'm washing it. And again, this is an obligatory precaution. I have the option to look at other marja, the next most a'lam marja. So what are the things that are haram when ghusl is required on me? So if I am in a state of najasat where I need to do a ghusl, so I may be, for example, during the menstrual cycle. So ghusl is not yet required on me, but I know that ghusl will be required when the menstrual cycle finishes. Or if I'm in the state of janaba and I haven't done my ghusl yet, these are the wajib ghusls that are required on me before I do my salah. So any act of worship that requires ghusl, wuzu or tayammum, I cannot do until I have done the ghusl. Touching the writing of the Holy Quran, I cannot without ghusl. I can recite the Holy Quran. It is makruh to recite more than 7 verses of the Holy Quran, but when we talk about makruh in ibadah, that means that the benefit that I would normally get is not as much. It does not mean that I should not do it. In fact, there are levels of makruh and there are levels of mustahab actions, and it is actually very highly recommended to sit at your place of salah when you cannot pray, for instance when you're in the state of haze, menstrual cycle, and actually recite the Holy Quran and for as long a period as you would normally recite your salah. And that mustahabat would actually overtake the makruh of reciting only 7 verses. So we can recite more than 7 verses. Touching the name of Allah in whichever language, so even in English, to touch the name of Allah, I cannot do without wuzu. To enter a mosque, pass through a mosque, again, if I'm just passing through without stopping, then that is allowed, but I'm not allowed to stop in a mosque. I'm not allowed to pick things up or drop things in the mosque. And if it is Masjid al-Nabawi or Masjid al-Haram, then I'm not even allowed to pass through those mosques. To recite the wajib sajda verses in the Holy Quran. Again, I said we can recite the Holy Quran, but the 4 wajib sajda verses we should not recite, and those are from Surah Sajda, which is Surah number 32, verse 15, Surah Fusilat, which is Surah number 41, verse 38, Surah Najm, which is Surah number 53, verse 62, and Surah Alaq, which is Surah number 96, verse 19. There are lots of things which are makruh in while we are in the state of needing ghusl, but I will not go into these. You can look them up yourselves if you so wish. I hope this has made ghusl a little bit more clearer, inshallah, and I will inshallah see you tomorrow where we will start looking at salah, inshallah. Thank you very much for your time. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.